Rocío Wanninkhof was born on November 9, 1979, in Costa del Sol, Spain, to parents Alicia Hornos and William Wanninkhof. They had 2 other children. The couple had a troubled marriage, which was very toxic, and this eventually led Alicia to have an affair with Maria Dolores Vasquez. In 1980, Alicia left her husband and moved with her 3 children to Holland. Afterward, she and her children moved in with Maria, and together they purchased a house, with Maria listed as the sole owner. The following year, Alicia's divorce from William was finalized, and she was granted full custody of the kids. At the time, Rocío was content with her new life and felt loved by her 2 mothers. She and her sister, Rose, often expressed their affection for Maria in their diaries. However, by 1988, things began to change. Alicia and Maria's relationship began to deteriorate, and the 2 women chose to part ways. Despite their separation, they continued living together briefly due to their shared ownership of the house. Eventually, Alicia moved out, and the split between them became more contentious, eventually leading to a legal dispute over the house. As time passed, Alicia's financial situation improved, and she began dating a new partner who treated her and her children with kindness and respect. A short while later, Rocío's brother moved to another city for work, and her sister was preparing for college after finishing high school. On the evening of October 9, 1999, at about 5:30 p.m., 20-year-old Rocío bid farewell to her mother and sister, telling them she was headed to her boyfriend's house in La Cala de Mijas, only about 500 meters away. After spending time with him, she left his house around 9:30 p.m. He offered to drive her home, but Rocío insisted on walking, mentioning she planned to take a shower, change, and then head out to meet some friends at an amusement park. This time, she decided to walk alone, which was unusual since she typically had someone accompany her. As she made her way home, she vanished without a trace. When Rocío failed to return home, her mother became worried and immediately contacted her boyfriend. He rushed over to help search the area, and together they asked around the neighborhood if anyone had seen Rocío. Since she had planned to meet friends at the amusement park, and they hadn't responded to calls, they decided to wait, thinking she might still be out with them. However, the next morning, Alicia became increasingly anxious when Rocío didn't return. She called the boyfriend again, who then reached out to the friends Rocío had mentioned, but they hadn't seen her at the amusement park either. With mounting concern, Alicia and her partner decided to walk through the neighborhood, retracing Rocío's steps from the previous night. As they passed an abandoned lot, they spotted a pair of running shoes on the ground, identical to the ones Rocío had been wearing. Upon closer inspection, they found a napkin and blood stains scattered nearby. Terrified of what they might uncover, Alicia finally decided to contact the civil guard for help. The area was sealed off. Police and volunteers searched the surrounding area. Detectives quickly gathered evidence that suggested Rocío might no longer be alive. Blood trails and tire tracks at the scene indicated that a body had been dragged into a vehicle and removed from the area. The terrain was sloped, making it unlikely that one person could have moved the body alone, leading authorities to believe that at least 2 individuals were involved in the crime. The blood found at the scene was sent for forensic testing. By October 16th, investigators informed the family that the blood matched Rocío's. Additionally, forensic analysis revealed the presence of another person's blood at the scene. Given the significant amount of blood, authorities concluded that Rocío likely died from the severe bleeding. The case quickly gained attention in the media, spreading across Spain and leaving investigators without many leads. A week later, a crucial witness came forward. A taxi driver, who had been driving near the area where the blood was discovered. He recalled an odd incident around 10 p.m. the night Rocío disappeared. He described a car suddenly appeared in his lane, forcing him to swerve and stop. As the vehicle passed, he heard a high-pitched scream, which sounded like someone in pain. Feeling uneasy, the driver left the scene. When the missing girl case surfaced, he decided to report his encounter to the police. More than 3 weeks after Rocío's disappearance, A body was found in a vacant lot near the sports club Los Altos del Rodeo, about 50 kilometers from the bloodstain site. The body had been poorly concealed under branches and leaves, and due to its decomposition, it was unrecognizable. The coroner speculated that the presence of carnivorous wasps in the area accelerated the body's decay. This made visual identification impossible at first. Near the body, investigators found 2 garbage bags. Inside one of them, Rocio's sister identified her sister's rings and a t-shirt with cut marks. It appeared that the attacker had removed Rocio's clothes after the assault. With the items identified, the authorities were able to confirm that the body belonged to Rocío, and DNA testing provided definitive proof. The autopsy revealed that Rocío had first been attacked and then likely stabbed, possibly while attempting to flee from her assailant. A single blow to Rocío's body caused severe damage to her internal organs, likely rendering her unconscious or paralyzed. The examination suggested that she had remained still for several hours after the attack, possibly alive, before her body was moved to the location where it was discovered. The careful way in which the body was placed in the bushes indicated that the assailant did not just discard it, but instead took time to place it there, which happened within a few hours of the assault. The area where Rocío's body was found was a quiet, secluded path that intersected with the N340 highway. This raised the suspicion that the person or people responsible were familiar with the area and chose it specifically because it was remote. The investigation initially focused on Maria, Alicia's ex-girlfriend, due to the ongoing tensions between them. Some believed that Maria might have acted out of anger over the breakup and their dispute over the house. However, there was no direct evidence linking her to the crime, and after a trial of 4 hours, Maria was sentenced to 15 years in prison without any proof. Her defense appealed, and a new trial was later granted. In 2003, 4 years after Rocio's death, the new case surfaced involving a young girl named Sonia Carabantes. Sonia was on her way back home at 5 a.m. after bidding farewell to her friends at the local fair. She made her way home, walking down the familiar street where she lived. Unbeknownst to her, a man named Tony King was waiting in a nearby alley, lurking in the shadows. A few days earlier, neighbors had noticed him strolling past her house, perhaps already planning his sinister act. As Sonia walked by the alley, Tony seized the moment, rushing out to grab her and pull her into the darkness near a nearby tree. Tony brutally attacked her, striking her repeatedly until she lost consciousness. He then forced her into the trunk of his car and drove to a remote area in Cerro Gordo, about 17 kilometers away. There, in the back of his car, he essayed her. Finally, he suffocated her, ending her life. He concealed her body among some rocks and fled, discarding her t-shirt and pants along the way, and disposing of the rest of her clothing in a nearby trash container. After the discovery of Sonia's body, Tony's ex-wife was already suspicious of his involvement in the death of Rocío and contacted the police. Her growing concern over his behavior only deepened after this new crime. Tony was quickly brought in for questioning, and his DNA was analyzed against blood found at the crime scene. The results matched, leading to his arrest for Sonia's murder. Tony Alexander was born in 1967 in England. His early life was marked by hardship and abuse, especially from his older brother, which left deep emotional scars. It is believed he lived in London until his teenage years. In 1986, at the age of 19, Tony was convicted for attempting to strangle 5 call girls and severely injuring one. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. In his time in prison, it was discovered that his attacks occurred specifically on Mondays and Wednesdays, as he spent time with his fiancée on the other days. Reports also noted that Tony was impotent. After serving 5 years of his 10-year sentence, Tony was released in 1991 under the assumption that he had been rehabilitated. However, within months, he was arrested again, this time for armed robbery. He was given a 5-year sentence, during which he changed his name to Tony King. Upon his release in 1996, he married his fiancée, Cecilia Matilda Pantoja, and they had a daughter. Despite having a family, Tony's criminal activities did not subside. In 1997, he attempted to assault a woman at a train station, threatening her with a knife. Though he fled the scene, CCTV footage of the crime was broadcast, and numerous viewers identified him. Fearing arrest, Tony fled with his family to Malaga, Spain, where he started over as a real estate agent. 6 months later, authorities in England traced him to his new life in Spain and demanded he return voluntarily to face charges. But Tony refused to cooperate, and the Spanish government was eventually informed of his whereabouts. However, he was classified as a low-risk offender, and the decision was made that extradition was not urgently required at that moment. Soon, Tony's path crossed with Rocío's mother, Alicia, in an unexpected way. Alicia had recently started working as a cleaner at a company where Tony was also employed. He saw Rocío with her mother a few times there. In 2000, Cecilia, Tony King's partner at the time, fled with their daughter, leaving Tony behind. There were rumors that Cecilia had suspicions about Tony's involvement in the tragic death of Rocío, but chose not to report it. In 2001, Tony found work at a local bar, where he befriended Simon Bowers, a fellow bartender. Later that year, Simon decided to open his own establishment, inviting Tony to join him as a cook. It was around this time that Sonia's brutal murder took place, prompting Cecilia to eventually contact the authorities about her suspicions regarding Tony. Tony was arrested after blood samples linked him to both Sonia's and Rocío's murders. A close friend of Tony named Robert Graham was initially arrested as a potential accomplice, but was released due to insufficient evidence. Despite Tony's apparent involvement in both cases, some believed he did not act alone. In 2005, Tony was sentenced to 36 years for Sonia's murder, and a year later, he received an additional 19 years for the death of Rocío. Maria was released and compensated by the state with €120,000. However, Alicia, Rocío's mother, continued to harbor suspicions about Maria's possible involvement in her daughter's death, despite a lack of concrete evidence. In 2008, UK police connected Tony to a series of other unsolved murders between 1987 and 1994, though this remains speculative. In 2011, Alicia made public 2 letters she had received, allegedly written by Tony King. In the letters, Tony confessed that Maria had ordered the crime and had been present when Rocío was captured. Alicia believed the letters, though their authenticity was never confirmed. In an emotional interview in 2019, 20 years after Rocío's murder, Alicia reaffirmed her belief that Maria was responsible for the crime, citing the immense pain of losing her daughter and her conviction that justice had not been fully served. The case remains controversial, with lingering questions about whether Maria played a role in the crime or if Alicia's belief in her involvement is rooted to the animosity between them. The uncertainty surrounding the case continues to raise doubts, and the full truth may never be known. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for more true crime content. See you next time.